Hi, I'm Kelly Cervantes, and this is Seizing Life, a monthly podcast produced by Cure Epilepsy. Today, I'm happy to welcome Mike Simmel to the podcast. Mike has lived with epilepsy for most of his life. From an early age, Mike found that his passion for basketball helped him overcome some of the challenges of growing up with epilepsy. Mike has spent much of his life playing basketball and sharing his love of the sport through his Bounce Out the Stigma program, which aims to build self confidence in kids with special challenges like epilepsy and autism. Mike is here today to share his epilepsy journey, discuss how basketball helped him in that journey, and explain how he uses it to help kids overcome challenges of their own. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. To kick things off, why don't you talk to us about how epilepsy first entered your life and the circumstances surrounding your first seizure?
Hi, Kelly. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. So when I first started having seizures, I was age 2. In my first seizure, my family at the time lived in California, and I was eating an English muffin at the table with my mom and my aunt, and I was eating at the table in the kitchen, and I fell to the ground and started shaking, and my mom and my aunt thought at the time that I was just choking, and they didn't know what to do. They called the EMT. They called the ambulance, and the EMT came to the house, and they looked at me, and they looked in my eyes. They saw my pupils were dilated, and immediately they called it, and they said, "I think your son had a seizure." So they said to my mom. They took me to the hospital. They did some tests, and right then and there, they kind of called it on the fact that they probably thought it may have been epilepsy.
Which is astonishingly quick to get an epilepsy diagnosis, which is incredibly fortunate because some people have to wait such a long time. Do you have any idea what your parents were told initially
Yeah,
about the epilepsy diagnosis?
Yeah, for the first time, like it was mainly my mom and my aunt in the hospital. Initially in California, they did some tests. They ran through some different things at the hospital. So long ago, it was like 45 years ago. So, I'm getting so old now with all this hair. But but it was a long time ago, and but it was just going through those tests and going through all the different things, and going after going through the tests, basically just they kind of saw what it was, and then my dad kind of came into the picture, and they went to the Children's Hospital Los Angeles, and then they met with another doctor and went through more tests, and so going through all that, it just they kind of called it spade a spade, and they said it was epilepsy. So then they did their due diligence. They did what they had to do, and it was the BG era too. It was before Google, so it was kind of
uh, has a cause for your epilepsy ever been determined?
No, not really. They just like anything else, like with most people, you don't know where it comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know which medications you were prescribed initially and whether they worked?
Yeah, initially I was given phenobarbital, and my mom said, talking with her about it, she said that initially when I was given phenobarbital, it made me very, very sluggish, almost like a zombie. And then they gave me Dilantin and another medication, and that kind of made me better, where I was more mobile, but a little bit less, more sluggish, and more motor skills kind of slow, and just changed it 2 through 7. I had the drop seizures, and it was just something that I dealt with, and it was just very, very rough for me.
Yeah, I think it's hard for people to understand. I certainly didn't know when we started this journey with our family. I thought, you just give the patient a medication and, you give them a pill and they'll be fine, not realizing that sometimes the medications are more detrimental than the actual seizures are, and that there's no guarantee that those pills will even control the seizures. And it sounds like that was sort of the case. Both situations were the case for you. Talk to us about what you remember, ages 2 to 7, how that affected you socially, physically, cognitively.
Absolutely. The teenagers of 2 through 7, I was kind of slow. I wore a helmet at times. I remember having drop seizures and just falling on the ground, and happening many, many, many times a day. Just walking around with my parents and just boom, just falling to the ground, or I'd be eating my meals at the table, and boom, hit my head. So my parents would do things like create opportunities for me so that I wouldn't have to have hit my head on the table anymore. They would put blankets on the floor, and I'd eat my meals on the floor with plastic utensils, and they would sit down on the floor with me so I wouldn't feel alone. I had a very supportive support system, and it was great to see that they would be there with me. So of course I get chocolate ice cream for dessert. I'm just joking at that, but it was great to see that they were very very supportive with me. And basically, between ages of 2 through 7, I was very slow. I couldn't hop on one leg. I couldn't skip. My first year in school, I was in special education gym class, which is a very unbelievable thing to think about, considering how far I've come. Now I could dribble 4 basketballs, and to think of one time in my life I couldn't even skip on one leg. I couldn't hop on one leg. I couldn't do a jumping jack. So when I was about 6 or 7 years old, I couldn't even do that, and it's just amazing. And I needed help at times going to the restroom. So it was really really tough for me growing up, and you know, it's just one of those things you deal with. And my family was there for me every step of the way. And I guess the most important thing when you have epilepsy is to have that support network there with you, and make sure that they're with you every step of the way, and working through the medications and different things you have to deal with, the different doctors and the different prognosis that they give you, and all the different things that you work through. It's the most important thing to have like I said, have a great support network with you. And I was so blessed to have that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I love that you had family picnics on the floor.
Yeah.
That's so heartwarming to hear, this way to like still be included and keep you safe in that way. And it's scary, ages 2 through 7, there's so much brain development that is happening during that time. And then around age 7, your seizures just stopped. Tell us about that.
So basically, when I was in New Jersey, then we moved back to New Jersey when I was about 3 years old. My family is originally from New Jersey. My mom and dad grew up in Hoboken, went to Hoboken High School, and
I hear
they,
Jersey in your voice.
a little bit, a little bit of an accent, some words. But so they moved back to New Jersey when I was about 3 years old, and I have an older brother and an aunt who, my aunt stayed in California. She finished her schooling, and my brother came back. We all came back together, and so we came back here, and uh, I saw another doctor for my epilepsy who was in Hackensack, New Jersey, who when I was 7 years old, he said to my family, you know what, Mike is he's not really. I wasn't seizing at the time, and I kind of overcame my epilepsy through some medications that he gave me, through some of the things that was going on with my body. I kind of outgrew my epilepsy at the time, and things weren't really happening, and it kind of took shape at that point in time. Some just the medications he gave me, but he said, you know what, you never know what could happen down the road, because 75% of the time people with drop seizures. So he told my mom, he said 75% of the time people with drop seizures will experience seizures down the road. So you never know what may happen. So be careful. So and I was just happy because I didn't have to go do EEGs anymore. I had to do any more blood work, because I hate blood work more than anything else in the world. I hate the sight of blood. I hate fires and blood are my two bugaboos. And also coconut and ice cream bars. And coconut and chocolate bars. Those are my three major bugaboos. Coconut and chocolate bars, fire and blood are my three bugaboos. But yeah, so but seriously, all kidding aside, I was so happy that I didn't have to see the doctor anymore, and but I still was kind of slow, and that's when basketball entered my life.
Yeah. So talk to us about that, how basketball entered your life, because it has become such an enormous part of your life, which I can't wait to talk about later.
Absolutely.
But right now, like, how did you discover this love for basketball?
Yeah, so that was really, really cool. My dad, he gave me a basketball, and he saw I had slow motor skills, saw I couldn't skip, saw I couldn't hop, and he gave me a basketball, and I developed a game of basketball. I used to dribble the ball everywhere I went. I used to dribble as I walked my dog. I had the only dog in the neighborhood that's head would bounce up and down like this. My dogs had to do that. I was stoked. But I would dribble in my house. My mom didn't like that too much. Dribble in school. The teacher took the ball away from me. She really did. My mom had to come to school and get the ball from me for the teacher. I had to do so much to just play this game of basketball because I loved it so much, and I would play it all hours of the day. Like in the summertime, I'd play 90-degree heat. I'd play as I got older. I played with old men. When I was the youngest kid in the park, just to get my skills up, and the game just developed so much for me and led to such good things. And I dribbled everywhere I went. It just the motor skills in the game was just it all came together for me. Just because my dad saw that the motor skills with basketball would coincide with the motor skills that I would need to overlap with things that I would need to help my epilepsy. So he kind of, I guess my dad kind of saw it as, I don't know if he saw it like that, but it kind of worked out like that. So it was pretty neat to see.
It's fascinating too. I mean, it's sort of like a physical therapy or an occupational therapy sort of targeted through the game of basketball. And
Absolutely.
it's really brilliant of your dad to see that and encourage it in you.
Hi, this is Brandon from Cure Epilepsy. Have you or a loved one been recently diagnosed with epilepsy? Are you looking for more information about epilepsy and available treatment options? Go to cureepilepsy.org/4-patients to get resources and information about epilepsy. Now back to Seizing Life.
Unfortunately, I know that the seizures did return around the time you were 16. Your mom had been warned about this, but no warning sort of prepares you for the return, especially after almost 10 years that you had been seizure free. What did that return look like?
Yeah, so I'd been playing basketball I played for like in high school. I played on club teams, and I was a very good player. I was, I could handle the ball really well. And I went to a basketball camp at age 16, and I was one of the better point guards at the camp, for my position. I was one of the one of the younger point guards in the top levels of the camp. And I was 16 years old, and I was having a really, really good week. Everything was fine. Everything was going smooth. And I went to take a shower in the morning in the middle of the week on a Wednesday. I remember like it was yesterday. It was Wednesday morning, and then next thing I knew, I opened my eyes and I looked up, and the EMT were right there, and they said, "Mike, you had a seizure, and we have to take you to the hospital." So I was in the hospital, and went back. Then my dad came to the hospital. He saw me, because I was 2 hours away from my house. It was in Trenton, New Jersey. Got me back to the dorm. I was okay, so I was okay. Then he went back home. He got a call from the camp, and the director called my dad and he said, "Listen, Mr. Simmel, you got to come get Mikey because he can't be at camp anymore because he has seizures and we can't have him here anymore." So my dad was like, "Look," he's like, we're gonna, as your parent, you understand, we're gonna know from our doctor, we're gonna know from our lawyer, just clear him. We'll bear the brunt of the responsibility." Camp said, "No, we can't have him here. He has epilepsy, and we don't want to bear that brunt, and you have to take him home." So my dad was a little upset, and so he basically, and long story short, he basically said to the camp, "Look, you're gonna keep him at that camp, or we're gonna bring the news channel down there, and we're gonna get our lawyer to sue you, and it's on your rear end." And he didn't say rear end, and he hung up the phone. 20 minutes later, he got a call back. All right, he can stay. So basically, I stayed at that camp, and always kept in the back of my mind, if I was ever in a position to help kids down the road, I was going to do it based on that thing that happened at that camp that day, because I felt so isolated and I felt so different. I just felt terrible. I heard the jeers and stuff, but you know, it always kept me that I always wanted to help kids because I felt so lonely at that time.
I'm so sorry that that happened to you.
Well, no, it was just sad, and that somebody would think that way, and they would that stigma that people make you label you because you're different, and my parents. I felt bad for my parents too that they had to go through it, but it worked out fine,
The
and you know what?
stigma is
Yeah,
real,
yeah.
and it sounds like you have had pretty phenomenal parent advocates, which would serve you well because the seizures didn't end after that first one when you were 16. So now you're in high school, you're playing competitive basketball. How did the return of seizures affect you from that point forward?
So from high school and college, I was having petite mouths. I was having just mini shakings, where I get the little shake, the tremors. I'd get those in the morning when I woke up, or when I would get, and I would get grand mal seizures. I had anywhere from 2 to 3 grand mal seizures a year, major seizures, and all this stuff would happen in the morning, just because of just stress, or just sleep, just I don't know if it's bad sleep or just stress, or just I was a very like high strung kid. I would always get I get stressed over tests in school. I would get stressed over situations on the court. I'm very high strung, as an individual. You probably tell by me I'm a very passionate young man, and I was always stressful over situations, and it would cause seizures. And so, it's okay to be vulnerable, but I've learned that in my life, and it's okay to let go.
Did you tell your classmates or your teammates that you had epilepsy?
So I didn't tell anybody at the time, and that's one thing that I didn't do, and I regret not doing. But the thing was, I was having seizures, and people found out that I had seizures, because what would happen is I went to a high school, and I went to a college. When I went to prep school and I went to college, I was having seizures at the school, and people would find out, because there'd be an emergency vehicle at the school, and I'd have to have the vehicle would come there to pick me up, and now everybody would find out, and now everybody would know. But the cool thing was, my friends that were cool with me, they were still cool with me, and the ones that weren't, well, they weren't. But the people that were really my good friends stayed my good friends, and they were okay with it. And but I made a bigger deal of it than they did, really. And like I said, it's okay to be vulnerable.
Absolutely. I think it's important to be vulnerable. You
Absolutely.
go to college, and you play basketball in college. Talk about lack of sleep and stressful situations. Everything just amps up. And, I think we see a lot of kids who may have mild control of their epilepsy. It just all spirals out of control when they get to college, and it can be kind of scary. What did that look like for you? Um, did you tell anyone in college, your coaches? Did you ask for any special accommodations?
Yeah, I talked to my coach about it. He was able to get me like great preferred housing on campus, where I got like a nice dorm, kind of like a nice suite where I was living, nice living quarters where it was quiet, where I could get sleep and stuff. But I still had seizures. I mean, it didn't go away, and a couple of my teammates took care of me and stuff. As far as if I had a seizure, they were there. Most of them knew. As far as like letting people know, that's people knew about it, and the coach knew about it and stuff. He was fine with it. And the amazing thing that happened in college was that changed my life was I went and I saw a specialist at Columbia became my doctor, and he put me on a new medication, which was extended release tablets, a Depakote ER and Zonegran, and that changed my life forever, because that it was taking it one time a day. Because in college, as in college you lead a very busy life, and having to take medication 3 or 4 times a day, it's very hard to do, especially when you're an athlete. You got to worry about lifting, or doing your road work or whatever you do, your cardiovascular, all that stuff, and then going to class a couple times a day, and then going to practice, then getting the meals in and eating right and getting the right sleep. It's very hard to have to worry also about not getting all your medications in too. So it's very hard to get all that balanced. So that was hard for me. So when my doctor put me on the extended release, there was times when I was seizure free for an extended period of time, and then I had that one breakthrough seizure, and then it extended time I wasn't, and then I had that one breakthrough, and then we kind of messed around with it, and then like now I've been seizure free for like 15 years now, so it's a good thing.
Incredible. Congratulations
Yeah,
on that.
yeah,
That's absolutely wonderful. You graduate from college and you have done and accomplished so much, Mike. It's wonderful. You've been a New York Knicks ball boy. You played for the Harlem Wizards. You've lectured and performed at hundreds of basketball camps over the year. But what I want to focus on for this next little bit is Bounce Out the Stigma. So this is
sure.
the program that you founded with your dad. Tell us about it, what it is, who it's for, and what your goals are for the project.
Absolutely. So all that other stuff, with the ball boy, the Knicks, and the Wizards, and all the other stuff, it was all great and stuff. I mean, I performed at the Apollo Theater, which kicked off everything to get to the Wizards and everything. And that was kind of like my Forrest Gump moment, like doing all this stuff and getting all these awards and everything. Bounce Out the Stigma is my dream come true. That's what my mission. As you said, it's really what my life has been all about. It's just been my everything's been my platform to get to this moment. To have this Bounce Out the Stigma for, and it's the promise I made to myself as a 16-year-old kid at that camp to say this is what I want to do with my life. What it is, it's a basketball program designed for children with unique issues. And what it was is me and my dad went out to dinner one night when I was in 2005 when I was playing with the Wizards, and I was doing a lot of pro bono work for the Epilepsy Foundation, the national foundation and the local foundation here in New Jersey, and I was just doing a lot of work for them. And me and my dad went out for dinner one night. We're like, it would be a cool idea. We said, it would be a cool idea if we put together a basketball program designed for children who are in the middle of the road. Now, there's programs for kids in mainstream. You got the all-star programs, the camp like you went to as a kid and stuff. And then there's those special needs programs that are kind of like, it's the labeled programs, But the kids that are like in the middle of the road, the kids that have epilepsy, autism, ADHD, spectrum disorders, all that stuff, Down syndrome even, those kids don't have basketball camps. There's nothing for those kids. And how cool would it be, my dad said, if you were the guy that they look to, that they could relate to show that there are no limits and that these kids can have somewhere to go. We could build this thing. I said, Dad, I've always wanted to do this. And we did this we were eating pasta, talking about this, and pasta's getting all over my face, and I'm so, I'm throwing the pasta in the air. It's crazy, but it worked. I mean, so I said, Dad, I want to do this. I want to take this national. I want to do this. My dad, look, calm down. Just write down what you want to do with it. Show it to me when you get a chance, and we'll do this. This was 20 years ago. So I wrote it all down and I typed it up. And that night, I showed it to my dad the next day. Said, we can run with this. So that summer, I put together a camp of about 18 kids that summer. It went great. This is 2005 in Hohokus, New Jersey. So it went great. And then the next summer, we partnered with the Epilepsy Foundation of New Jersey. We had 3 camps, one in Essex, one in Passaic, and one in Bergen County. And then we kind of grew it. And then like 12 years ago, I took it on full time. After I retired from the Wizards, I took it on full time as my full time project. So I didn't want it to be a hobby anymore. I wanted to take it on full time because I saw we were in 2 other states. We were in North Carolina. We had 2 camps in North Carolina. We had one in Charlotte. We had one in Winston-Salem. And I said, I'm going to take this thing on full time. So I took it on full time. And now we've been in over 25 states throughout the country. This summer alone, we have 15 camps in 7 states. We have after-school programs, weekend programs. And really what we do is we take kids with special needs and we show them that they can be special. And we show the kids limits don't define you, you define your limits. And that's what it's all about.
I think that is absolutely remarkable. And congratulations, because it's a huge feat and a ton of work. It was named the Junior NBA Program of the Year in 2019. It's remarkable.
Yeah, we were named Junior NBA National Program of the Year. We work with the Sixers, the Magic, the Hornets, and we are junior affiliate of the New York Knicks. I was named Junior Knicks Coach of the Year in last year, 2024. I was named the Kentucky Colonel. I was named the Outstanding Young American Toya Award, which is a very famous award. The Toya Award, which many famous people got, and I don't know, still understand how I got it. We were given citations by the city of Philadelphia and the state of New Jersey, Governor's Award, all these different awards. But let me tell you something. All this great stuff that happens to us that like makes it look like I'm like a Forrest Gump type character. It's all great and everything, but the coolest stuff that happens to me is getting a hug from a kid that just came to the program and said, "You changed my life," because we know we changed our life, and getting a high five from a kid or have the parents shake our hands saying, "You changed my child's life," because they had no idea how to play basketball when they first came into the program. Now they're dribbling with 2 basketballs, they're dribbling with 1 basketball for the first time in their life and making a difference in a child's life. Because when you could do that, that's like changing the world for somebody. That's a mission that God has given in your hands.
Yes, the confidence that you are instilling in them to go out
Self-empowerment.
in the world. It's empowering. Yes, absolutely. So if someone wants to learn more about Bounce Out the Stigma camps and programs, where can they get that information?
So yeah, you can go to bounceouttostigma.org for further information. Also, we have an Instagram page, Bounce Out the Stigma, and also we're on Facebook as well.
Amazing. And I understand that you have also written a couple of books based on your experiences. Tell us about those.
So yeah, so I've written two books. First one I co-wrote with another author called Mighty Mike Bounces Back. That was written in 2012. And that was more of an epilepsy centered book, a semi autobiographical children's book. What I did with that book was I wanted to help people with epilepsy and show them that you know you're not alone. And what we did in the back of that book, we did some first aid, we did some how to help cope with seizures and how to some tools dealing with seizures and things of that nature. It was actually published through the American Psychological Association in print, Imaginations Press. Also, my newest book, which I'm really so excited about because I did it myself, and it's part of a new series that's going to be coming out, part of the Bounce Out the Stigma Buddy series. It's called Never Give Up, and it's about all types of disabilities, and it's about some buddies that get together. The protagonist is a quick-witted character named Xander Simmons. His buddy Evan Thomas. Xander has epilepsy and Evan has autism, and they meet up and they play basketball together. And they're both shy kids. And Xander's a little crazy, but Evan he bounces them out, and they meet and they go to a Mighty Mike clinic and they have some wild adventures together. And they meet other kids with disabilities, and it's just a fun book. And there's epilepsy first aid in there. There's autism facts. There's epilepsy facts. The foreword in that book is written by John Starks, who was a former NBA player for the New York Knicks, all-star player who played for the Knicks in the 90s. And he's just a great guy and a friend of our program and a friend of mine. And he did a great job writing the foreword. And I'm really, really blessed and thrilled to bring that book to the public.
Amazing. And where can people find those books?
So you can find the Mighty Mike Bounces Back is on Amazon, and the second one, Bounce Out the Stigma, Buddy, Never Give Up. Just say Never Give Up. Never Give Up is at your local bookstore, BarnesandNoble.com, Amazon.com, the publisher WarrenPublishing.com or Warren Publishing, or local bookstores, and anywhere really.
Anywhere books are sold. I love
Anywhere books are sold. That's it. Like this.
What do you wish the public knew about epilepsy and those who are living with it?
Absolutely. I think that there's a couple things. Epilepsy is one of the most underfunded disabilities, and I think that it needs to be funded more, and I think it needs to be drawn out more in the public. I think people don't know enough about it. I go to schools a lot and I talk to kids. I do a lot of school assemblies with my program, and not a lot of kids know enough about it. They don't know people who have it. They don't know enough people what it's about. And I asked kids, I said, there could be a room with 300 kids. And I said to the kids, who knows what epilepsy is? And they raised their hands. And maybe 4 kids out of 300 raised their hand. And I asked, okay, what do you know? And they said, well, it's when lights are flashing. That's all they know, They don't know what epilepsy is. There's got to be a better educational outlet for these kids to understand what epilepsy is. There's got to be more talking about epilepsy. I wish that there was more ways to get the public to know about epilepsy in the media, and I wish there was more funding for that to happen. I wish the stigma was not just people thought epilepsy was just somebody just shaking. There's more to it than just that. So I just wish there was more education about epilepsy, and I wish there was more funding. And I wish the stigma and the labels about people with epilepsy that they can't do things that they can, and that limits don't define you. Define your limits. Like I always tell the kids, epilepsy doesn't define you. Define me.
I couldn't agree with you more, Mike. Thank you so very much for sharing your story, sharing Bounce Out the Stigma with us. Keep doing the amazing work that you're doing, because goodness gracious, is it needed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Mike, for sharing your epilepsy journey and for all that you do to help kids through the Bounce Out the Stigma program. As Mike's journey makes clear, attaining seizure freedom can be a long and difficult journey for those living with epilepsy and their families. Unfortunately, 1 in 3 people diagnosed with epilepsy are unable to control their seizures with current medications. That is why Cure Epilepsy was founded in 1998. Our mission is to fund breakthrough epilepsy research that will transform the lives of people with epilepsy as we lead the search for a cure. If you would like to support us in our mission, please visit cureepilepsy.org/donate. Thank you.
The opinions expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of Cure Epilepsy. The information contained herein is provided for general information only and does not offer medical advice or recommendations. Individuals should not rely on this information as a substitute for consultations with qualified healthcare professionals who are familiar with individual medical conditions and needs. Cure Epilepsy strongly recommends that care and treatment decisions related to epilepsy and any other medical conditions be made in consultation with the patient's physician or other qualified healthcare professionals who are familiar with the individual's specific health situation.